Good morning. Every day, someone comes into the Wellspring and they ask, how'd you get into this? How do you know so much? I I always feel like I can't really answer that question. I struggle with that question. They want to know, where'd you learn this? And my answer to that question is my life, my whole life. I was born a patient to these plants, but my journey to them started long years before me. My grandmother, my great grandmother, this is the way for my family. I laugh when people ask me, what's a good book you should read to learn all about herbs or something? I struggle with those questions because there is no one book, there is no 10 books really that brought me to where I am today. There's some great ones out there that I have been able to enjoy through the years, but I came to this because of um, my life path and necessity. In my family, there's really no separation between the plant medicines and spirituality. We as a people heal with spirituality, and we see plants and all of nature as a representation, a manifestation, and an extension of that spirituality. So my answer to that would be long-winded. So I strive not to do that. But in trying to be authentic, I would have to say that there is no separation for me between the plants and the spirit. In fact, for me, the spirit of the plant is what heals. And that might be shaky ground for some because of religiosity, but it's either the spirit of the plant or the pen of the physician who writes your prescription. I'm going with the spirit of the plant. So for me, coming to this medicine, it brought me to life. Like, it literally stabilized my life on the planet many, many times. As I was born under very curious circumstances of the mind and the body, and I was able to, my mother's pregnancy was able to be stabilized and successful because of plant medicines. My grandmother's pregnancy with my mother, the same, and so on. So this is natural for me. This is ancient for me. This is history for me. But like I said, there's some great books out there. I turn to books not to learn how to anything. I turn to books trying to find another representation of myself, because this is the way I knew life until I got into other communities as a young child. I was an assistant to birth as a midwife at 7 years old. My first midwifery job was at 7 years old, and I learned uh, that I was not normal. Did not know. I didn't know that I wasn't normal. This was normal for me, but I learned that I was not normal as I tried to be friends with other people in community, other children in community, and they were not like me. Their lives were not like mine. Their jobs, well, they didn't have jobs. I had jobs. I had to perform medicines for people, present medicines for people, and support people who were healing and so on, very, very young. So in that, I started trying to figure out, what if I'm not normal, then what is normal? And that's kind of what led me to study. But I learned by apprenticeship model. I was sitting with my great grandmother and my great grand aunts and elders in community, old wives and midwives and medicine men and the like, till this very day. That is the nature of my course here. It's hard for me when going into colleges. It's one of the reasons why I do not even talk about my collegiate education, because that's not where I learned this. I found lots. I just like learning. I like school, so I jump in and out of schools because I'm a geek. But I came to this a different way. I lived this from a different angle. And, like I said, there are good ones out there. There's a book called Back to Eden by, I think, Jethro Kloss is his name. That book was in my mother's kitchen. I remember that book, seeing that book when I was very, very young. Maybe, I don't know, 5, 6, something like that, 4 or 5. There have been good books along the way. Even to this day, I've studied through things like, as a midwife, one of my favorite is Birth as an American Rite of Passage, written by Dr. Robbie Davis Floyd, and just explaining how we surrender our power in the mechanism of birth in this country. Because I went in the path of studying medical anthropology because I was trying to understand what health and wellness looked like outside of this country. Growing up reading books, like my favorite was National Geographic and Bon Appetit and other books, like magazines like that, because my reality was a international, global reality. My medicines coming from other places, my parents coming from other places, my great-grandparents coming from other places. I had another picture that I was a part of while I was sitting in this sort of pseudo reality here in these United States, in this country where I am born and raised, but my nature, my reality was just from somewhere else. So dealing with the plants was very natural to me. It's the way I grew up. It's the way it is in my family. My mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, all doing plant medicines a different way. Like if you ask my biological mother, she will say she never learned the medicines in that way. Meanwhile, she was the nurse aide to every person who came to our family seeking healing. She didn't learn the plants, but she learned the manner, the healing ways, the nurturing ways, and she is the best at it. Meanwhile, my grandmother, she learned the medicines, but more than the medicines, it was nutrition that she learned. Like, she learned less of the plants and more of the food. She was very, very disciplined on how to eat to live. Never eating more than a saucer of food at a time, always fasting 1 weekend out of the month, and so on. The stories are long, but each woman in my family, every generation will birth one who is responsible for carrying the medicines forward. In my generation, that's me. In my mother's generation, it's her. In my grandmother's generation, it's her. In my great aunt's generation, another one. The list just goes on. But I think in our country, especially amongst melanin people, black people, we're used to reading these transformation stories in somebody else's cultural paradigm, like The Teachings of Don Juan by Carlos Castaneda. We're okay in understanding of reading somebody else in a land far away came the hard road of life experiences towards transformation. We're used to that. But many of our people are living that experience, where the healer comes by way of illness. The healer comes by way of mental strife or something like that. But this is the way. Often the people who came to heal, they need healing first. So this is why I can't answer the question when a person's standing over the counter in the Wellspring asking, how'd you learn this? Where'd you come from? What book should I read? I have to, you're asking me to go back, I don't know, 11 generations at least, to explain how I got here. But I'll try. So here I am. I'm excited about being able to share a bit of my story, especially when it equals, or when it includes, being able to speak and give honor to the elders who literally saved my life and taught me how to help preserve life. But how I got here, we've been here is my answer. We've been here. We've just been here. And now I see my work as continuing to support other people to have their journey to here being having absolute confidence in the plants and the foods as medicine. That's where I exist, and my work is to support other people to be able to have that experience and rely on it with no shadow what do they say? Beyond a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, with absolute confidence. So this is my story, truncated, and I look forward to sharing with you when you come into the Wellspring. Peace and light.